Jerome Powell says that it's not time to start changing any of the Fed monetary policy, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there, including the fact that Business Insider has asked, hey, why are vending machine prices going up? What's going on with that? In other news, we talk just a bit more about Anthony Mayorkas saying to the Cubans, don't come. Apparently they only want immigrants that are going to vote one way, but we'll go over that just a little bit. Charles U. Schumer proposes federal marijuana decriminalization. Again, like he does every 6 months. But Axios will treat it as if it is massive news. So we will talk about that. And a George Floyd mural is struck by lightning and destroyed. It's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and boy, do we have a lot to go over today. We still have stuff from yesterday to go over. We have so much to go over today here, but we're going to get through it all. I actually was excited. When I went to bed last night, there were only like 22 tabs up there. I'm like, cool, we'll get through everything from yesterday. We'll get through all the stuff for today. We'll actually get out of here a little bit early. Maybe we'll go raid one of my British friends. It's going to be cool. And then I went in and started looking at the news a little bit more while I was laying in bed, and I'm like, oh, yeah, we got to cover that, and we got to cover that, we got to cover that, and then we got to cover that, and I found 4 more this morning on top of it, too. So a lot of stuff to go over here. There's a lot of moving parts here, and we're going to cover them all over here on Contemporary. But before we get started, head on over and check out my friends, The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show, all of whom will be returning to our new project coming up here. So watch for alerts as we get our new project out there. Watch for what we possibly could see. This is probably going to be a fall project because my graphic designer is moving across the country. All the way across the country, too, by the way. Coming up here in the next couple months. So I think our launch is going to be fall. And I keep saying I was going to do it over the weekend. I haven't done it over the weekend yet, but I'm going to secure those domains here, and we're going to get some things started here. I've got somebody great that I think is going to be on board to help us web develop, so look forward to something here. It's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to presenting this out to you guys here. So watch for that. Watch the Discord and the Twitter for updates, and that's where we're going to go. Plus, I'll be talking about it on the top of the show. All right, let's get into the news for the day. Where's my live chat? Let's see what you guys are doing here. Everything's back up, ready to go. Do I have dueling robots? No. I'll shut those down too. All right, let's get into this here. Starting on the Dow. The Dow went up they're just shy of 35,000 again. They tried once again. They did crest it intraday. Right up off at the beginning, they crested 35,000, but they rested at 34,933.23, which is up 0.13% over the day before. If you're thinking on investing in the market, I would be really wary right now. Of course, this is not official financial advice, but given the fact that Jerome Powell says, oh no, everything's fine, just keep going, keep spending, keep doing all this shit. Yeah, I'd be wary about that. So maybe look into something else. Maybe talk with your financial advisor to see what else could be out there. But once again, not official legal financial advice for legal purposes. Looking in at your Bitcoin for the day, your Bitcoin is at $31,990 US. It's sinking again. It's on sale. We might actually, in the rate it's been sinking, see it below 30,000 once again. But once again, you can come pick some of that stuff up on sale, and if they keep inflating the currency, that stuff is going to go back up once again. So we'll see what happens with that. On your fuel, your trip to the gas pump is going to be about even, possibly a little bit less, depending on where you go. $2.79 seems to be the regular across the Madison area. I did note on this one that the BP in DeForest has a cash option. So obviously, Gas Buddy's going to show you the lowest price, but I've seen one other gas station do this before, where they'll give you a slightly lower price if you pay cash than if you pay credit. And it's not because, oh, well, it costs so much more for us to process the credit card. That's not what they're doing. And my cousin and I talked about this because we were doing lawn care at the time together. But he and I sat down and we talked about this because I'm like, how could he possibly afford to go back and do that? And then my cousin pointed out to me, he says, well, what they're probably doing, this was actually fairly well-known gas station around the Kenosha area, Lou Perini's. And he says, well, what Lou's probably doing is, well, he's probably counting on the fact that if you come in to pay cash for it, because you got to come inside to pay cash, as long as you're in there, you're going to buy a soda or a bag of chips or something. I'm like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. A lot of the people that go to pay at the pump just pump the gas in and leave right away. Don't go into the store, don't do anything. But if they, especially when it's more expensive and they have the incentive to go, like when gas is 99 cents, there's no incentive to go inside and save that extra little bit on cash unless you're really, really, really broke. But once you're approaching $3 a gallon, if you can save 5 cents here or there on a 30-gallon tank, you're going to take that. And then you're going to go in and, oh, cool, chips. Hey, I'm going to grab these chips as long as I'm in here. So I've seen that. That's the first time I've seen that since the Great Recession. But yeah, I've seen that before. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. Dow Jones futures fall as Apple masks weak market rally trends. Netflix, Taiwan Semiconductor in focus. From Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures and S&P 500 futures fell modestly Thursday morning, while NASDAQ futures tilted lower. Netflix news, more big earnings, and Chinese economic data were in focus. On the surface, the stock market rally had a quiet Wednesday, helped by bullish Apple iPhone news and dovish comments from Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell. But more... Oh, I see. We're going to reset the article again. But more leading stocks ran into trouble, including Upwork and new IPO figs. Hey, isn't that what socialism is for? I thought socialism was for figs. Meme stocks such as AMC Entertainment and GameStop continue to sell. Hold on to those. Never, ever, ever let go of your GameStop stock. To the moon. Netflix late Wednesday said it has hired Facebook gaming executive Mike Verdu, signaling a much bigger push into gaming. Verdu previously worked at Electronic Arts. Netflix stock rose 2% early Thursday. That signals a move towards a 563.66 buy point that could be viewed as an early entry or an official entry from a double bottom base. Netflix stock climbed 1.3% to 547.95 on Wednesday. I'm curious about that, actually. I know, and like I said, we went off and Facebook gaming is a thing. Actually, technically, when we're streaming to Facebook, we're streaming to Facebook gaming. That's technically what's happening as far as we go over, as far as Restream is concerned. Even though we're not doing gaming, that's technically what we're doing. I don't know, what was Netfly, or not Netfly, Gamefly. Was Gamefly associated with Netflix? I know they had the same business model where you could rent the game from Gamefly and they mailed it to you, and then you didn't get your next game that you wanted to rent until you sent the other one back. And it was a subscription service. It was a monthly thing. Like I say, I know it's the similar model to Netflix or what Netflix used to be, so I'm wondering if that's what they're trying to do is revamp their Gamefly label, if that was associated with them, and possibly do something like Steam, where you can rent the game. It doesn't have, well, it would still have to take up some space on your hard drive, but I don't know. That's a little bit interesting to me. I'm kind of curious to see where that goes. Before Thursday's open, chip giant Taiwan Semiconductor, Dow Jones giant United Health, and Morgan Stanley reported second quarter results. All three have been working on consolidations. On Wednesday, Apple stock rose 2.4%, hitting yet another all-time high on a report that Apple is telling suppliers that it wants to boost iPhone production by 20% in 2021. Apple stock is extended from a recent breakout. That should be good news for chip makers such as Qorvo, Skyworks, and Taiwan Semiconductor. Both Qorvo and Skyworks briefly cleared cup with handle buy points, but advances fizzled with Qorvo closing down 0.2%, while Skyworks stock climbed just over 1%. All right, let's look at the meme stocks and let's look at the futures. AMC fell 15% on Wednesday, closing below its 50-day line for the first time in 2 months. GameStop slid 6.9% so far in July. AMC stock is down 41%, and GameStop is down 22%. Excuse me. Though both are up sharply in 2021, AMC and GME stock fell solidly overnight. Hold that shit. Hold that GameStop stuff. Don't let the hedge fund managers scare you. Hold that shit. Newegg Commerce and Carver Bancorp, two more recent meme stocks touted by Reddit users, also fell sharply, extending their sell-offs after briefly skyrocketing. Hold that stuff. Not official financial advice. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.5% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures lost 0.3%. NASDAQ 100 futures edged lower with Netflix stock offering a slight boost. Crude oil futures sank 2% while copper prices tilted higher. The 10-year Treasury yield fell 3 basis points to 1.33%. Bullshit! Investors will get weekly jobless claims data at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, along with July manufacturing reports from the Philly Fed and New York Fed. At 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time, the Federal Reserve releases June industrial production data. Overnight, China reported Q2 GDP rose 7.9% versus a year earlier, slightly below views for 8.1%. June industrial production popped 8.3%, topping estimates for 7.8%. June retail sales swelled 12.1% above forecasts for 11%. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we're seeing from IBD, and usually on the finance portion of this, I don't go into CNN. But this one, I thought that we needed. Now, this is a let's go do updates thing, so we're actually going to skip this one here. Let's get into the big news of the day. All right, starting with CNBC. Powell says the Fed is still a ways off from altering policy, expects inflation to moderate. Yeah, we don't need to do anything. It's just going to do it on itself. It'll do it on its own. All right, let's see what Jeff Cox has to say here. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Wednesday that the economy needs to improve more before the central bank will change its ultra-easy monetary policy. In remarks prepared for the House Financial Services Committee, the central bank chief noted improvements, but said the labor market in particular is still well below where it was before the commie fucking coup. Powell noted that the Fed's benchmark of substantial further progress towards full employment and stable prices remain a ways off. He did remark that Fed officials at least are talking about reducing the pace of asset purchases. On inflation, Powell said it has increased notably and will likely remain elevated in coming months before moderating. But he stuck to his oft-stated belief that the current surge is temporary and will be offset as conditions return to normal. He stressed that much of the current price pressure comes from a few industries, such as used cars, that are sensitive to temporary conditions. Multiple members of the House committee pressed him on the current inflation trends. It's all kind of the same story. It's a shortage of semiconductors. There's also the high demand for various reasons, Powell said in response to a question from Madeline Dean of Pennsylvania. It's just a perfect storm of high demand and low supply, and it should pass. Unless we think there's going to be a many-year shortage of used cars in the U.S., we should look at this as temporary. We very much think that it is. Really. So, and Jerome, you have more expertise than I do at this. But we're sitting in a situation where it's more valuable for people who don't have to get up and do the morning commute to sit at home and collect money from the government, therefore interrupting your supply chains. With the government looking down the barrel of the Delta variant and the Delta Plus variant and the Lambda variant on top of this. And you think this is going to pass? And you think that we should just sit and do nothing and wait for this to pass? I understand. Jerome, your hands are tied. You don't get to make fiscal policy. You don't get to make unemployment policy. And you don't get to make welfare policy. But you got to be talking to some of these people saying, hey, what the fuck? We got to do something here. It's time to go grab the houseplant in chief by the ear, Risk the Secret Service and say, come on, man, what the fuck? I'm doing everything I can here. Give me something to work with. Pushed through the hearing to explain what substantial further progress will mean, Powell said that in regards to employment, it's a very difficult thing to be precise about. It really is a very broad range of things, he added. He said the Fed will provide lots of notice before it continues tightening policy. Markets have been watching Fed communications for indications about when the central bank will begin tapering its minimum $120 billion a month in bond purchases, as it keeps interest rates anchored near zero. Powell noted that the two policy measures, along with our strong guidance on interest rates and on our balance sheet, will ensure that monetary policy will continue to deliver powerful support to the economy until the recovery is complete. And that's it. He literally just said, we're going to continue printing money until we're out of this shit. The chair's comments came as part of his mandated semi-annual testimony to Congress on the state of monetary policy and the economy. As he has in the past, Powell noted that the pandemic-related hit to the economy is falling on those least able to shoulder it. Conditions in the labor market have continued to improve, but there's still a long way to go, he said. Job gain should be as strong in coming months as public health conditions continue to improve, and as some of the other pandemic-related factors currently weighing them down diminish. While the unemployment rate has dropped to 5.9% from its pandemic high of 14.8%, the Fed is focused on an inclusive employment mandate across racial, gender, and income groups. Despite substantial improvements for all racial and ethnic groups, the hardest hit groups still have the most ground left to regain, Powell said. Okay, so because the economy is bad, it's racist. Legitimately, he said in the middle of this, yeah, we're going to keep printing money until this is done. As we sit and had another month of 5+% inflation. But yes, just keep printing that back out. Keep throwing those enhanced unemployment benefits. And hey, once the people come back out and start rioting in the streets because you're about to end their unemployment and their eviction moratorium, hey, let's crash the housing market too. Hey, those multi-unit, those multi-family homes, yeah, BlackRock can just come up and buy the fucking things. So that's Jerome Powell's meeting right there. I got a little bit more on this here. Also from Jerome Powell's meeting, this is coming from Reuters. Via Yahoo Finance, Powell says Fed digital currency could undercut need for cryptocurrencies. From Janelle Marte, a Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said on Wednesday that one of the stronger arguments for the U.S. Central Bank to set up a digital currency is that it could undercut the need for private alternatives such as cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. Asked during a congressional hearing if having a digital currency issued by the Fed would be a more viable alternative than having multiple cryptocurrencies or stablecoins emerge in the payment system, Powell said he agreed a stablecoin is a crypto that attempts to peg its value to a conventional currency such as the US dollar. Well, that's probably dangerous. I think that may be the case, and I think that's one of the arguments that are offered in favor of digital currency, Powell said during a hearing before the U.S. House of Representatives Financial Services Committee. That, in particular, you wouldn't need stablecoins, you wouldn't need cryptocurrencies if you had digital U.S. currency. That's not the fucking point! You dumb fuck! That is legitimately not the point of having a cryptocurrency. Having a cryptocurrency means having a currency that you, Jerome, cannot manipulate. Like you're doing with the US dollar right now. Fed officials will be broadly examining the digital payments universe in a discussion paper that could be released in early September, Powell said. He described it as a key step that accelerates the Fed's efforts to determine if it should issue a central bank digital currency or CBDC. We already have a central bank digital currency. It's called the US dollar. This may come as a shock to some of you people, but there are not enough dollars in circulation to cover the amount of dollars in everybody's bank account. There are not enough physical dollars on hand to cover all that. Powell said he was skeptical that crypto assets would become a main payment vehicle in the United States, but said stablecoins might gain more traction. However, he said more regulation is needed before stablecoins could take on a bigger role in the financial system. Well, we have a pretty strong regulatory framework around bank deposits, for example, or money market funds, Powell said, that doesn't exist currently for stablecoins. And if they're going to be a significant part of the payments universe, which we don't think crypto assets will be, but stablecoins might be, then we need an appropriate regulatory framework. Powell's remarks were in line with those of Fed Governor Lael Brainerd, who said in May that households and businesses could be harmed by fragmented payment systems that feature too many stablecoins. Fed officials may face intense debate as they figure out whether to move forward with the digital version of the dollar, with some policymakers saying a CBDC is not needed. Fed Vice Chair for Supervision Randall Quarles said in June that he thought any proposals for a CBDC would need a clear high bar, but we get carried away with the novelty. I think we need to subject the promises of a CBDC to a careful critical analysis, Quarles said. On Wednesday, Powell reiterated that the Fed were to move forward with developing a CBDC, it would consult with Congress and the public. He repeated his view that as the holder of the world's reserve currency, it would be more important for the United States to get it right than to move quickly. All right, there is a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with this. As I said right off the beginning, first off, they're showing the Dogecoin to the moon, and the Bitcoin, and the Ethereum, and the Litecoin. First off, as I said before, we already have a digital currency. It's called the US dollar. There are not physical US dollars to represent every dollar that's in your bank account. It's just not there. It's just not there. Furthermore, the US dollar isn't pegged to anything. It's pegged to GDP, but that's so wild and going out of control right now. But there's no physical asset to this. And I saw that Ron pointed it back out on the chat too. It's easier to bamboozle the people if you have a digital currency. That's legitimately what it is. And the fact that we've got the US dollar as the digital currency on top of that, they don't have to go and spend the resources to go brrrr and keep printing out the money. They just, hey, look, we have more money. Yay. Yay. So this, and like I said at the top of this, Jerome Powell completely misses the point of having a cryptocurrency. There is a point to having crypto. And Jerome is just, I think this is the reason that people have it, because we don't have enough physical dollars for them. No, that's not the point. Here's the point, Jerome Powell. The point of having a digital cryptocurrency is, as I said, it's because it's something that you don't manipulate. It's something that you can't control. That you can't come up and say, well, we're just going to print more of this because we're in trouble right now. That's the point of having cryptocurrency. It's not a convenience. It's not an electric payment system. It's because we need to have something that you don't control, that we can easily transmit back into US dollars and pay the ungodly fucking taxes on, or at some point with Bitcoin, just spend as it is. But regardless, they're going to try and get their fingers into this so they can control the market again because, well, cryptocurrency is a big threat to their level of control of the world. All right. From the Blaze, McConnell torches Democrats' $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill as progressives complain it's not big enough. From Chris Pandolfo. Senate Democrats have put forward an infrastructure proposal that is wildly out of proportion to what the country needs right now, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the Turtle Man, said on Wednesday. Read more. Okay, Beck. McConnell's comments come the day after Democrats came to an agreement on a $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package that will address Biden's so-called human infrastructure priorities. These policies include expanding Medicare, free community college tuition, national paid family leave, extending Biden's revamped child tax credits, and various climate change policies watered down from the Green New Deal. Every major program that President Biden... We got to do the Schumer voice. Every major program that President Biden has asked us for is funded in a robust way. Senate Majority Leader Charles U. Schumer told reporters at a news conference announcing the plan on Tuesday. The $3.5 trillion bill will advance in the Senate along with a $1.2 billion bipartisan deal for hard infrastructure funding for roads, bridges, and other projects traditionally thought of as infrastructure. There are two infrastructure bills because Republicans would not support a broad spending package that would cost upwards of $4 trillion. Trillion, with a T. But the White House badly wanted to have token bipartisan agreements to show the American people. As a compromise, Democrats decided to split their priorities using a dual-track strategy to advance parts of an infrastructure package Republicans might find acceptable in one bill and advancing the other by a budget reconciliation, a process that lets them overcome a GOP-led filibuster and advance spending-related bills with a simple majority vote. We're going to be proud of this plan. We know we have a long road to go, and we're going to get this done for the sake of making average Americans' lives a whole lot better. And by average Americans, Schumer means his big business buddies that are donating to his fucking campaign. Negotiations were fraught for weeks, and it remains uncertain whether Democrats will ultimately be able to send either bill to President Biden's desk. McConnell's remarks reflect how Republicans may be preparing to walk away from the bipartisan agreement because Democrats are demanding it to be paired with a $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. Speaking on the Senate floor Tuesday, McConnell slammed Democrats for proposing trillions of dollars in new spending as inflation rises at the fastest rate seen since the 2008 financial crisis. Just this morning, we learned that the runaway inflation is continuing to hit working American families and hit them hard. Consumer prices spiked in June considerably more than had been forecast. Inflation is up 5.4% year on year, the fastest jump in about 13 years. Stunningly, it's up 0.9% just month over month, McConnell said. What Democrats want to force through this summer, through reconciliation, will make our current inflationary mess look like small potatoes, he warned. And a lot of this is still review from the same kind of stuff that we looked at yesterday. And, well, I don't know where this is going to go. I really don't. I know that Bernie Sanders is on the Senate Budget Committee, so he's the one who gets to pull the money strings on the Senate side. But this is also pegged to the infrastructure bill. They've either got to get the infrastructure bill passed or this bill passed. And I know if they don't do the infrastructure, because that was one of their promises, they're going to have a lot of angry union Dems out there because those jobs aren't going to come back without the infrastructure package. The people who drive the truck, the people who flatten out the concrete, the people who pour the asphalt down, the people who run the grader, the people who run the bulldozer. Those jobs are going to be gone without the infrastructure package. And that is as core of a Democrat voting base as you can get. A classic Democrat voting base, not a progressive Democrat voting base. That is as core of a union classic Democrat base as you can get. But they're going to keep coming out and spending money and spending money and spending money. So a lot of this is going to come down to which one of their bases do they want to appease to. And I'm very curious as to who wins out on this one. We will see. We're going to watch this. I want to grab this one from Insider, though, and this is the title article to the program. Coming from Insider, the price of vending machine food just jumped by a record amount as Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and snack brands hike prices. From Mary Hanbury. Vending machine food prices soared in June, according to the Consumer Price Index. From the Bureau of Labor Statistics, snack food sold in these machines in the U.S. was up 2.3% last month. The biggest single-month cost jump on record. Axios reported the cost of eating out was up 0.7% overall. Yeah, I've been noticing that too. I mean, with what happened in my kitchen the other day, I have not been cooking on the stove because I don't have a range hood yet, which means that all that heat is sitting under finished cabinets. And I know I should be fine, but still, I'm a little bit wary about it at this point. But with that, yeah, I've noticed that. Every menu price that I see is up just a little bit. plus the vending machine, which I've not noticed because I actually haven't touched or eaten anything out of a vending machine in years, but plus the vending machine. Food shortages, wage hikes, and the ongoing labor crisis are putting pressure on food manufacturers and restaurants to increase prices. Brands that are typically stocked in vending machines, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Nestle, for example, are facing the same challenges and said they're raising prices on the consumer side to offset rising costs. We now see broad-based inflation across our various commodities, packaging materials, and transportation costs. Nestle's CEO Mark Schneider said on a call with analysts in April, "Not all of these items can be hedged, and our hedging cover for a number of commodities will run out over time. We are raising prices where appropriate." Food brands and retailers are being hit on all sides. The ongoing shipping crisis, which caused a breakdown in the freight supply chain, is leading to delays and increased shipping costs, which is driving up the price of food. Other companies are being impacted by a tight labor market, which is leading to worker shortages and therefore delays in production and distribution. Some have had to hike wages to attract new workers and are passing these expenses on to the customer. Some experts are expecting the price hikes will go on well into 2022. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. The U.S. inflation scare is far from over as shortages and supply chain issues continue to put pressure on prices. Andrew Hunter, senior U.S. economist at Capital Economics, said in a note to clients cited by The Guardian. Others are more optimistic. Price increases could be short-lived as the economy reopens and supply chain snafus ease up. Ian Shepherdson, chief economist for Pantheon Macroeconomics, told insiders Joseph Zeballos-Roig and Madison Hoff this week. So there you go. Are we right yet? What did we say? Oh, if you keep printing money like this, if you keep doing the stimulus package, you're going to force inflation to go up. What did I say when I said I refused to take the stimulus check? I'm not going to be responsible for inflating the currency like this. And now they're going to force me to take the fucking thing anyway, but that's what I said right from the beginning. I'm not going to be responsible for this. Hey, guess what? We printed money. We ran stimulus checks left and right. Now we're seeing vending machine prices going up because people can't find work. At what point do we come out and say, yes, we saw this coming? Yes, I know what this was going to do. At what point can we say, told you so? But no, hey, if you're concerned about inflation, you're a racist. If you're concerned about inflation, you just don't want the poorest and the most needy among us, who we consider to all be black anyway. You don't want them to have anything. You just don't want them to get help. You're some kind of a racist. Give me my free stuff, otherwise you're some kind of a fucking racist. Here it is, folks. And guess what? As many other analysts have pointed out, inflation, that's a tax on the poor. Because what little bit of, it's a tax on everybody, but what little bit of assets you have when you're poor lose value more dramatically than the assets that the rich people have. So as you continue to force this inflation to go back up, you're hurting more and more your base, getting more of them up dependent on government values. It's almost like this is planned at this point. So everybody enjoy your new vending machine costs. That's what I have to say to that. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's talk a little bit about Cuba, starting with this tweet from Jessica Green. Retweeting and quote tweeting Tom Elliott, Jessica Green tweets out, "Gee, glad we voted that anti-immigrant Trump guy out of office. Because this is what Alejandro Mayorkas has to say."
Allow me to be clear. If you take to the sea, you will not come to the United States. The time is never right to attempt migration by sea. To those who risk their lives doing so, this risk is not worth taking. Again, I repeat, do not risk your life attempting to enter the United States illegally. You will not come to the United States.
Boy, I'm glad that we don't have that racist anti-immigrant guy Donald Trump in office anymore. Look at how welcoming and hosting these guys are to people who are actually going through financial times. One of the discussions that's been going on over social media, too, is the fact that we're sitting here wondering who it is that they actually want coming into the country at this point. Because I noticed, and a lot of people have noticed, that they particularly want people from the Northern Triangle and Mexico to come across the border, even though they've kind of rolled back on that one. But also, a lot of people have pointed out the fact that Cuban Americans, once they come to the U.S., having seen socialism and communism firsthand, and seen some of the places that the U.S. is going, tend to not vote Democrat, especially when we have Bernie Sanders, who was a leading contender for president for the Democrat Party. Bernie Sanders saying, "Oh, I think Castro was a good guy. And I think breadlines are a good thing. You should be thankful to be in a breadline. Think of the community that comes up when you have a breadline. You meet your neighbors when you're waiting for bread in a line, okay? I'm going to go to my third house. All the rest of you, wait for your food in the line. And if we run out, well, we're sorry for that." So interestingly enough, they don't want the Cuban Americans to come over here and become Cuban Americans. All right. From the Daily Wire, DeSantis presses Biden to provide internet access to Cuban protesters amid communist crackdown. No! Florida Governor Ron DeSantis pressed Joe Biden to immediately move to provide internet access to pro-freedom Cuban demonstrators that protested the island nation's communist dictatorship over the weekend. The letter from DeSantis comes after Cuba's communist government cut off internet access on the island in an apparent effort to stop the protests from growing and to prevent the world from seeing the government's response to the protesters. The Biden admin said earlier this weekend that Cubans that attempt a maritime sea voyage to the U.S. will not be allowed into the country, even if they have legitimate asylum cases. Very interesting. Very interesting. Excuse me. The response from Biden admin, combined with the apparent lack of action, led to critics accusing the admin of responding based on what's favorable for the Democrat Party. No shit, Sherlock. Bacteria with a long enough fucking telescope on Mars know that their actions are going to be what's good for the Democrat Party. It's not going to be what's good for the Cuban people. It's going to be what's good for the Democrat Party. I write to urge you to assist in providing internet access to the people of Cuba, standing up against communist oppression and demanding a voice after decades of suffering under the yoke of a cruel dictatorship, DeSantis wrote in his letter to Biden. As you know, the Cuban people are taking to the streets to protest the communist regime, and the Cuban government has responded with violence. At first, the world could see the images and videos of this mass movement, but now the tyrannical regime of President Miguel Diaz-Canel has shut off access to the internet. The Cuban people have lost their ability to communicate with one another, and many Floridians born in Cuba have no information on the safety of their loved ones. Equally as important, the world has also lost the ability to see what's happening on the ground as the Cuban people rise in support of freedom. Yeah, no, we're not providing internet access to Cuba. First off, how? At some point, the internet access requires some sort of hard line. So please do tell me, well, there's satellite access too, but please do tell me how you're going to provide that to Cubans, how you're going to get the stuff into Cuba to get it out to the Cubans. I need an answer for that, Ron DeSantis. We don't have the money to do this to Cuba. We don't want to come back and nation build in Iraq. We don't want to nation build in Afghanistan. Why are we going to nation build in Cuba? If we're going to go to that point, annex Cuba. I'm sure a lot of the Cuban citizens would like that anyway, but make that a territory. But we're not going to provide internet access to a sovereign nation. Now, if you want to see what's on the ground, if you want to show the world what's going on the ground, I mean, there are independent sat phones out there that have an internet connection at this point. So go start sending your reporters from the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, and the New York Times, a former newspaper. Go send, I mean, you love those reporters so much. Send the people from CNN down there with sat phones. Tell them to report on this, but I've got the feeling that they're not interested in reporting on this shit either. The letter to Biden comes after DeSantis, Florida Republicans, and prominent national Republicans have called on the Biden admin to act. DeSantis said earlier this week that the admin was acting with cowardice, and Biden was weak with his response to the crisis, specifically his admin's refusal to call out communism. Technology exists to provide internet access into Cuba remotely using the innovation of American enterprise and to diverse industries here, similar to the American efforts to broadcast radio into the Soviet Union during the Cold War in Europe. The federal government has a history of supporting the dissemination of information into Cuba and for the Cuban people through radio and television Marti, located in Miami. In addition to sending information, however, our efforts must include creating a means for Cuban people to speak to the world, DeSantis continued in the letter. I urge you to act immediately to provide all necessary authorizations, indemnifications, and funding to the American businesses with the capability to provide internet access for the people of Cuba. Steps must be taken immediately. Oh, Ron. Oh, Ron. See, this is what makes me nervous about Ron DeSantis, is because he tends to, especially the more popular he gets, have more and more big government solutions to problems that could be taken care of in the private sector. So come out and start saying, hey, internet company that does remote stuff, hey, can you possibly build a switch to provide internet access to the people of Cuba? Does this have to go through DC? And if it does have to go through DC, why does it have to go through DC? I need to understand why this has to go through the Biden admin. Except for a way for you to score cheap fucking political points against the Biden admin. But regardless, that's what we're going to see coming back up out of that. There's the letter right there. Let's grab another tweet here. Let's talk about the red-haired bobblehead. Curtis Houck says amazing despite the fact that Fox News' Peter Doocy points out the fact that Cubans are exhausted and protesting in the streets over a decade after the decade of communist rule. Jen Psaki refuses to denounce the evils of communism and say that communism has and continues to be a disaster. Let's listen.
Don't we know that the reason people want to leave Cuba is because they don't like communism? And so as you're trying to figure out like what the processes are for these people who want to leave Cuba, just
I'm not sure what your question is.
you guys.
Why are people leaving Cuba, or what is the process for them getting here? I can explain either of them, but you tell me.
Sure, yeah. Do you think that people are leaving Cuba because they don't like communism?
I think we've been pretty clear that we think people are leaving Cuba, or not leaving Cuba, or protesting in the streets all as well, because they are opposed to the oppression, to the mismanagement of the government in the country. And we certainly support their right to protest. We support their efforts to speak out against their treatment in Cuba. I will say separately, an important question is also what happens when people are seeking protection, or what happens when they are attempting to flee. In the past, as I noted, we've had several humanitarian programs, such as family reunification parole programs for both Haiti and Cuba. Those were policies or processes that were in place prior to the Trump administration. Those have not been turned back on, as Secretary Mayorkas said yesterday. He also said we're assessing the status of those parole programs. Haitian and Cuban nationals in the United States with a fear of return to their home countries may be eligible for protection, such as asylum under U.S. law. Haitian nationals already in the United States may be eligible for temporary protected status. But migrants interdicted in the Caribbean who manifest a fear are referred to USCIS for a protection screening. That's what happens. Those who do not manifest a fear or who are not found to have a credible fear following the screening are repatriated to their country of origin. Those found to have a well-founded fear of persecution or
Wait. I thought asylees and seeking asylum wasn't illegal. And if we question the asylum claims of people, then that's racist. I mean, cue the AOC. Okay, Papi. Asylees have a right to come to the U.S., okay? And seeking asylum isn't illegal, okay, Papi? So once again, this does come back to the part of they're picking and choosing which country they want to take asylum seekers from, which I was told was not permitted. And if you pick and choose what asylum-seeking countries you choose to take people from, You're evil and orange and evil at the same time. It's so interesting to see these same things happen over and over again, administration over administration, with no consistency. And furthermore, I mean, if Psaki's coming out and saying, "Oh, well, we're going to take the asylum seekers in here and we'll check their claims and this thing," that goes far in the face of what Mayorkas has to say. Let's remember, because I mean, it was 10 minutes ago that we talked about this, so some people might have forgotten.
Allow me to be clear. If you take to the sea, you will not come to the United States.
So maybe it's time to sit down and have a conversation in the DNC and in the Biden admin as to what the actual message is, because, I mean, we're hearing two different messages here. All right. Let's talk about another foreign intervention into our country here from the New York Post. Secretary of State Antony Blinken welcomes UN probe of racism in the U.S. I couldn't believe this when I saw this. This is from Aaron Fees. The UN, whose World Health Organization arm just panned for its probe of the COVID-19 pandemic's origin, combined the guidelines set by the Chinese Communist Party, has been formally invited by the Biden admin to investigate the scourge of racism, racial discrimination, and xenophobia in the U.S., according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. As the president has repeatedly made clear, great nations such as ours do not hide from our shortcomings. They acknowledge them openly and strive to improve the transparency, said Blinken in a statement released on Tuesday. It is in this context that the United States intends to issue a formal standing invitation to all UN experts who report and advise on thematic human rights issues, he continued. As a first step, we have reached out to offer an official visit by the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism and the UN Special Rapporteur on minority issues. What the fuck is happening in this world? We have runaway inflation right now. And the most important thing for Antony Blinken to do is say, yes, European people, European socialists, come in and tell us how racist we are. The invitation was extended a little over a year after the lightning rod death of George Floyd, a black man who was viciously murdered when Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, since fired and convicted of murder, knelt on his neck during an arrest. In a global report issued last month, sparked by Floyd's death, UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet called on nations to start dismantling racism. And earlier this month, Bachelet said that nations should fully fund a wide range of reparations measures to make amends for slavery, discrimination, and colonial rule. Yeah, see, Boris Johnson might get on this bullshit. Oh, well, we did take over Africa for quite a while. So we might be responsible for what's happening in Africa now. Let's just take all of our money from our treasury and send it down to the people of Africa so they can use it, because they will totally build a great society off of that. Whereas I look back and say, well, I come from a dirt poor Wisconsin family. I've never owned a slave in my life. Nobody's ever owned me. My last name is Irish, so I'm also just as likely to be a slave or slave descendant in this country. So you can take this reparations bullshit and you can go and fuck yourself. The invitation also comes less than a year after the U.S. endured lashing on its civil rights record before the UN, getting scolded by the likes of Oh my God. It really says that on the screen, doesn't it? Oh, it really says that, doesn't it? I couldn't even read those out loud the first time. I can't read them at all right now because I'm that blind, but I couldn't even read those out loud the first time. Getting scolded by the likes of China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and North Korea. 4 of the most racist nations on the planet. In the Tuesday statement, Blinken said the U.S. has a duty to stand for judgment at the hands of the outside world. No, we did this to the outside world in 1776. And then when the outside world, this is the best part, this outside world who wants to come back and denounce us for our racism, but still come back out and say, please, please, Mr. Uncle Sam, please, please protect our countries with your troops. These wonderful socialist countries, who aren't socialist at all, they're free market countries with huge social safety nets that they have because they don't have to pay for their own goddamn national defense. Because we're paying for it. Want to come on and tell us how to run our country and run our society. Fuck you. I'm telling you right now, if I was commander-in-chief, if I rose to the presidency, especially if China and Russia were the ones doing it out of the UN, I would look up to the UN and say, okay, well, here's the orders. Our troops are coming out of Europe. You're on your own. Hey, Germany, you want to tell us how racist you are? Then you sit back and tell Russia to fuck themselves and see what happens. Ukraine, you want to tell us how racist we are? Fine, you deal with the Kremlin. No, I am not going to be told that I'm a racist from fucking Europe. No. Thank you, Anthony Blinken. All right, from Fox News. Nikki Haley blasts Blinken's invite to UN experts on racism, minority issues. This is insane. A rare moment of clarity and intelligence from Nikki Haley. We don't get many of those, so take them as they come. From Adam Shaw. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley on Wednesday tore into the Biden admin for extending an invitation to the UN envoys on racism and minority issues to make an official visit to the U.S., describing the move as insane. China has 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps, Cuba is beating protesters, and Venezuela is torturing political prisoners, Haley said in a statement to Fox News. Yet Biden's Secretary of State is inviting the UN to investigate human rights in the U.S., the freest and fairest country in the world. This is insane, she added. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Tuesday said he was inviting the independent experts to make official visits to the U.S. and would extend further invitations to other envoys who were appointed by the UN Human Rights Council. As the president has repeatedly made clear, great nations such as ours do not hide from our shortcomings. They acknowledge them openly and strive to improve with transparency, Blinken said in a statement. Yeah, we saw that. Let's see. Rapporteurs are independent experts appointed by the Human Rights Council who will typically gather information on the respective issues and then issue a public report based on, according to the list that we saw, whoever's paying them the most fucking money. Because, as Haley pointed out, the Uyghurs in China, human rights abuses in Russia, North Korea, who kills you if you try to cross into their border or try to cross out of them. They're the ones who are telling us that we're fucking racist. Fuck you. So yeah, this really does come as all the people who are paying the UN. The rapporteurs, who's paying their money? The Trump admin pulled out of the Human Rights Council in 2018 due to its anti-Israel bias and makeup of its membership, which included countries with abysmal human rights records. But Trump is a Nazi. Right. Haley has previously called the body a cesspool of political bias that makes a mockery of human rights. The Biden admin has sought to rejoin it. The current special rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism is a law professor at the University of California, Los Angeles School of Law. Of course it is. Of course it is, because it couldn't be anybody else. except for a UCLA professor. The office's most recent report sought to highlight how digital technologies are being deployed to advance the xenophobic and racially discriminatory ideologies that have become so prevalent, in part due to widespread perceptions of refugees and migrants as, per se, threats to the national security. Oh, you mean like Alejandro Mayorkas just told us about the Cuban people who are trying to come to this country on fucking boats. I remember that because I'm more than 4 hours old. Blinken also used the statement to welcome the controversial UN Human Rights Council's adoption of a resolution on racism against Africans and people of African descent in context of law enforcement. You mean like the Africans who are rioting in South Africa right now? So, yeah, that's coming. Marco Rubio says Secretary Blinken, instead of asking the UN to come here to tell us how racist America is, why don't you ask them to go to Cuba, where an evil socialist regime storms into people's homes, beats the crap out of them, and then drags them away.
En mi casa no hay nada, mira lo que le han hecho a mi marido, mira, se lo llevaron todas las boinas rojas, acabaron con mi casa, mira, acabaron todo, me rompieron la puerta, todo me lo rompieron.
So, yeah, there's that. All right, let's keep going. We still got a ton of stuff to get to, and we're already an hour in. All right, this comes to us, a tweet from Disclose.tv. Just in, congressional Democrats at the House Oversight Committee launch investigation into the Maricopa County audit of the 2020 election in Arizona. Here's the letter, and let's go ahead and add this to the Discord for you guys. If you want to go over into the Discord and see it, it will be in there for you guys. I'll put it in general chat. It is in there. Go and check this letter out for yourselves. We'll just read a little portion of this one here, though. Mr. Douglas Logan, Chief Executive Officer and Principal Consultant of Cyber Ninjas Incorporated, 242 South Washington Boulevard, number 160, Sarasota, Florida. 34236 is the addressee. Dear Mr. Logan, we are writing to request information about Cyber Ninja's participation in an audit of nearly 2.1 million ballots cast in Maricopa County, Arizona, in the 2020 election. We're concerned about your company's role in the highly unusual effort, given Cyber Ninja's apparent lack of experience in conducting election-related audits. Reports that the company engaged in sloppy and insecure audit practices that compromised the integrity of ballots and voting equipment and were questioned by the U.S. Department of Justice, and evidence that you and other individuals funding the audit have sought to advance the big lie of debunked voter fraud allegations in the November 2020 presidential election. Once again, sitting back here just trying to sow discord into this and try to make it so that people don't believe that this is what's actually happening. Which tells me that Cyber Ninjas is either found something or is about to find something. And the news media wants to get out and call this as discredited as humanly possible, as soon as humanly possible. Reading from Politico, House Dems launch investigation into Arizona ballot review. From Zach Montellaro and Nick Nietzwidek. The House Oversight Committee is launching an investigation into ballot review being run by the Republican-controlled state Senate in Arizona, the committee announced on Wednesday. Americans' right to vote is protected by the Constitution, and the cornerstone of our democratic system of government, Oversight Chair Carolyn Maloney and Representative Jamie Raskin, who helms the subcommittee on civil rights and civil liberties, said in a statement. The committee is seeking a wide range of information from cyber ninjas, the firm overseeing the Arizona effort, including the communications it had with the Maricopa County officials, former President Trump or his representatives, and those who have advanced election-related falsehoods such as Sidney Powell, Mike Lindell, and Lynn Wood. The committee issued a letter on Wednesday to Cyber Ninja's Chief Executive Officer Douglas Logan, requesting information about legitimacy of the effort. The letter gave Cyber Ninjas 2 weeks to comply with the committee's requests. Proponents of the review have called the process an audit, but the election professionals and local and state election officials have said the effort is nothing more than a conspiracy-tinged fishing expedition that does not rise to the standards of a professional audit. No, and I love the fact, because the letter says, right off in the top, in about the middle paragraph that we can see on the picture, the letter says that you have no experience in auditing an election, which means let's let the government audit itself once again. The committee is seeking to determine whether the privately funded audit conducted by your company in Arizona protects the right to vote or is instead an effort to promote baseless conspiracy theories, undermine confidence in America's elections, and reverse the result of a free and fair election for partisan gain, Maloney and Raskin said in their joint statement. Maloney and Raskin, for God's sakes, you guys are senators. Senators or representatives? I think they're actually representatives because it's the House. You guys are representatives. You defend the Constitution. You took an oath to defend the Constitution. For God's sake, you should know what the fuck is in it. We may find that there was some sort of Hong Kong fraud, even though nothing bad happened at the 2020 presidential election. Cyber ninjas may come back out and find that there could be something wrong in a video game. But that is never going to change the fact that on January 20th, 2021... Joe Biden put his hand on the Bible and said, I swear, I solemnly swear to uphold the thing, man. And at that point, nothing that cyber ninjas, that Pennsylvania Republicans, that Arizona Republicans, that Wisconsin Republicans for that matter, nothing that any of them can possibly do is going to change the fact that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is the 46th president of the United States of America, and Kamala Harris, because of a technicality, is likely going to be the 47th. The only thing that we can see coming back out of this, and this seems to be what everybody's frightened as shit about, is the fact that this could lead to a revelation. Of course, that nothing bad happened, but a revelation of weak points in the election system that would allow states like Arizona and Pennsylvania to shore up their election systems to make sure that no fraud happened in the future, even though that no fraud could happen, possibly, because this was the freest and fairest and safest election in history, Hong Kong. Wink, wink. And Raskin knows this, by the way. He's just coming out and say, oh, well, they're going to come out and they're going to, if they find something wrong and it's going to overturn the election. It can't overturn the election at this point. It is physically impossible and legally and for all intents and purposes, completely impossible to overturn this election. And Jamie Raskin fucking knows it. Isn't it interesting how famous that guy got after the Capitol Selfie Fest? All right. Let's grab one that we tried to get to yesterday but couldn't. Rand Paul, GOP senators, introduced bill to prohibit federal mask mandates on public transportation. From Brooke Singman. Rand Paul, along with several Republican colleagues, is introducing legislation to prohibit federal mask mandates on public transportation related to the coronavirus pandemic. The bill, Travel Mask Mandate Repeal Act of 2021, is set to be introduced by Paul on Wednesdays, co-sponsored by Mike Braun of Indiana, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, Roger Marshall of Kansas, and Roger Wicker of Mississippi. The legislation prohibits federal agencies from imposing any federal requirement related to the pinko fucking pox that an individual wear a face mask when utilizing any conveyance or transportation hub. The federal government is forcing the American people to continue to wear masks despite the fact that we've already reached herd immunity is ridiculous and needs to end immediately, Paul told Fox News. I'm introducing the Travel Mask Mandate Repeal Act of 2021 to put a stop to this nanny state mandate of requiring masks on public transportation. He added, in a free country, people will evaluate their personal risk factors and are smart enough to ultimately make medical decisions, like wearing a mask themselves. Braun added that it's far, far past time to end the federal government's contradictory, one-size-fits-all COVID mandates, including the rule requiring wearing masks on planes and public transportations. Oh, I got a story for this. But yes, it's time to come back and start doing this. So, well, I'm not going to dox myself as to what port I sailed out of. I think most people I've talked to at this point know that I was near Green Bay over the last week. So, of course, because the wind kept us off the lake, we were going and doing things in Green Bay while we were there. There is a National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, which I didn't know about. But, well, it's been probably a good decade since I've spent significant time in Green Bay. That was one thing that my ex-fiancée and I never did, because that was where she was from, was Green Bay proper. Well, not Green Bay proper. She was from one of the suburbs, but that's where she was from, was the Green Bay area. But all the time I spent up there, I never knew there was a railroad museum. But because my sister has small children, we decided we're going to go and check out the railroad museum. And I thought that'd be kind of cool too. It's a place where, instead of just going sitting on the bar waiting for the weather to clear up, you can go take the kids, they can go see something cool, ride on the train, stuff like that. The train museum in Green Bay, which I don't understand because, you're far from any sort of interstate hub when you're at. For those of you who don't know Wisconsin, you're an hour to 2 hours away by car from any other state. If you're going anywhere on a train from the train museum, and I don't know if that's connected to the central hub or not either. But for whatever reason, this train museum is governed by the authority of the TSA. Which means that is the only place left in Green Bay, Wisconsin that requires mask wearing. And because of who my brother-in-law is and who my sister are, they looked at this, they found out that we had to go wear a mask to go to the train museum, and they said, nope, we're not doing this no more. So, yeah, that's something to check into, too, especially if you're going to look into some sort of transportation museum. Make sure that it's not under the authority of the TSA, because there's still a mask mandate for TSA authority places. But hopefully, with this bill passing and Rand Paul doing this, that will actually that'll get rid of that. So we'll see what happens. All right, from Axios. Schumer proposes federal decriminalization of marijuana. Again, from Aaron Doherty. Senate Majority Leader Charles U. Schumer, Senator Cory Booker, and Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon unveiled draft legislation on Wednesday to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. Though the legislation faces steep odds in the 50-50 Senate, they're going to try to blame fucking Republicans for this. Oh my fucking God. As if Joe Biden didn't write the first, not the First Step Act, but the 1994 crime bill. Wisconsin has a railroad museum. It's just TSA has authority over it. The TSA doesn't have a museum. It's who has the authority over the museum, which I don't understand why that is either. That actually confuses the shit out of me. Though the legislation faces steep odds in the 50-50 Senate, it's a major milestone for marijuana activists and a sign of how far the debate has moved on criminal justice and the war on drugs. The bill, called the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, would remove the drug from the Controlled Substances Act and impose a federal tax on marijuana products. Well, it's still on the Controlled Substances Act if you have a federal tax on it, according to the Marijuana Moment. Revenue from the tax would be used to fund grant programs for committees communities most impacted by marijuana persecutions, regulation of marijuana would be transferred away from the DEA and to the FDA and other agencies. States would still be allowed to set their own marijuana laws, but businesses and individuals in the states that have legalized it would be allowed to sell and consume marijuana without the risk of federal punishment. The bill would also require federal districts to expunge nonviolent marijuana-related arrests and convictions within a year. Taking marijuana off the list of controlled substances, it would still be on it, would remove the most difficult regulatory burdens for the U.S. marijuana companies, allowing them to take tax deductions, hold bank accounts and loans, and list on the U.S. stock exchanges, such as the NASDAQ and the NYSE, Bloomberg reports. For decades, young men and women, disproportionately young Black and Hispanic men and women, have been arrested and jailed for even carrying a small amount of marijuana in their pockets, Schumer said on the Senate floor on Wednesday. This is monumental, Schumer said on Wednesday, while announcing the draft legislation. At long last, we're taking the steps in the Senate to right the wrongs of the failed war on drugs. Well, Charles, I want you to keep in mind the fact that your enforcement, the court costs that get taken back in from the defendants, the labor that they get for cheap from the prison system, the stamping of license plates or whatever other prison labor that they put into there, whether it be stamping license plates or firefighting, all this stuff here is stuff that your colleagues on your party, and the other party too, don't get me wrong, it's both Republicans and Democrats are fucking doing it, they're profiting off of this. The vice president, currently sitting, profited off this. So yes, you can do this like you do every 6 months and come out and propose that we decriminalize on the federal level. And I'm going to say, cool, let's do this on the federal level. Let's get this decriminalized. But all of your Senate colleagues are going to say, no, as they frantically call their investors and say, how much money am I making off the drug war? All right. From Fox News, House GOP re-election committee smashes fundraising records, outpacing Democrats. This is not as big of news as people think that it is. But it is from Paul Steinhauser. Building up resources as it aims to recapture the House of Representatives majority in the 2022 midterms, the House Republicans' re-election arm says it hauled in a record $20.1 million in fundraising last month. And the National Republican Congressional Committee also reported early Wednesday that it brought a record of $45.4 million during the April to June second quarter of fundraising. The community touted that the June fundraising was its fourth straight record-breaking month, and its haul of the past 3 months was the largest off-election year quarter in NRCC history. The committee also showcased that it brought in $79.2 million the first 6 months of 2021, far surpassing the $44.5 million raised during the first 6 months of 2019. The similar period during the last election cycle, it noted in the 2021 haul, was the best first-half fundraising total in committee history. The NRCC also spotlighted that it had $55 million in its coffers at the end of June, more than double the $25.6 million cash it had on hand at the same point in the last election cycle. We will take back the majority next fall, and voters are doing everything they can to help us accomplish that goal, NRCC Chair Representative Tom Emmer of Minnesota said in a statement. The rival Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee reported last week that it brought in $36.5 million in the past 3 months, roughly $9 million shy of the NRCC's haul, which included $5 million transfer from the Republican National Committee. That's actually significant. The DCCC also reported raising $14.4 million in June, with $44 million of cash on hand, around $11 million less than what the NRCC reported having in its coffers. So none of this is surprising. None of this should even make you blink an eye, but apparently Twitter decided to come out and tell you that this is an important story. There's a Democrat in office a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic House. And our country is continuing to go into shambles on top of it. And under most circumstances, the out party looks at this, feels dejected, and say, what can I do? What candidate can I give money to make sure that my agenda gets back in? It's especially done in the out party. The Democrats did this in 2018, and they massively outpaced Republicans in 2018. But Republicans massively outpaced them in 2020. And they still lost Hong Kong. So, yeah, statistically, unless there's some sort of election integrity reform coming up out of the House of Representatives, then we're sitting in a situation where it's almost guaranteed that Republicans take the House at least in 2022. We've got 100 years of statistics to tell us that's what's going to happen. So this is kind of a non-story. I just wanted to touch on this for a second. From the Associated Press, FBI mishandled Nassar USA Gymnastics abuse case from Michael Balsamo and Eric Tucker. The FBI made fundamental errors in investigating sexual abuse allegations against former USA Gymnastics national team doctor Larry Nassar and did not treat the case with the utmost seriousness, the Justice Department's Inspector General said on Wednesday. More athletes said they were molested before the FBI swung into action. The FBI acknowledged conduct that was inexcusable and a discredit to the American's premier law enforcement agency and all. The long-awaited watchdog report raises troubling questions about how the department and the FBI handled the case, and it highlights major missteps that the FBI between the time of the allegations were first reported and Nassar's arrest. The IG's investigation was spurred by allegations that the FBI failed to promptly address complaints made in 2015 against Nassar. USA Gymnastics had conducted its own internal investigation, and then the organization's then-president, Stephen Penny, reported the allegations to the FBI's field office in Indianapolis, but it took months before the Bureau opened a formal investigation. At least 40 girls and women said they were molested over a 14-month period, while the FBI was aware of other sexual abuse allegations involving Nassar. USA Gymnastics also contacted the FBI officials in Los Angeles in May 2016 after 8 months of inactivity from agents in Indianapolis. The Inspector General's office found that, despite the extraordinarily serious nature of the claims against Nassar, FBI officials in Indianapolis did not respond with the utmost seriousness and urgency the allegations required and deserved. It's interesting. You know, we've got a sex case, once again, with Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in jail, and Jeffrey Epstein, who completely didn't kill himself. Of course, Hong Kong, wink wink. Fucking clown world that we live in here. I gotta talk to Midget B because I gotta borrow that red fucking nose that he has. But I mean, are some of the federal cops in on this at this point? Because that's the question we got to start having here. Why is it these cases that are getting swept back under the rug? Why is it these cases that nobody seems to be able to come back and do well? Why is it these victims that seem to get no justice? All the fucking time. I guess we'll never know. All right, let's talk about Steve Mnuchin. From Squawk Box on CNBC, when former President Trump says the election in November was stolen. Do you believe that was a lie? Let's listen.
Scope here, because this is an issue that a lot of companies across the corporate America have been dealing with, which is the legacy of January 6th and the insurrection that we saw up there. We've seen the former president out there saying that the election was stolen from him back in November. You worked as Treasury Secretary for Donald Trump for 4 years. You know him very well. When the former president says that the election in November was stolen, do you believe that was a lie?
Well, let me just say I was very, very involved in the campaign in 2016, and I traveled with the president across the country and was integrally involved in everything. In 2020, I wasn't able to participate in the campaign, and I obviously was focused on a massive amount of work in COVID. So I'm really just watching this from the outside.
But even from the outside, I mean, you were the Secretary of the Treasury. You had some access to the Trump administration, to the White House. You know how he campaigned. Is it a lie for the former president to say that the election was stolen?
Well, what I'm saying is I'm focused on our investments, our business going forward. I think the president's policies were extraordinary in COVID, whether it's the vaccines or other issues. All the work we did under COVID, the bipartisan support we had to get the economy recovered.
And of course, nothing bad happened in the 2020 election. Biden won more votes than even Barack Obama. He's the most popular president in U.S. history. Honk, honk, wink, wink. Let's see what CNBC has to say. Cybereason says it accepts 2020 election results after investor Mnuchin refuses to reject Trump vote lie, from Brian Schwartz. The CEO of Cybereason said he and his company accept the results of the 2020 presidential election after one of their investors, Steve Mnuchin, declined to acknowledge that ex-President Trump was spreading a lie about the contest being rigged. It wasn't rigged, honk honk. In an interview with CNBC's Squawk Box on Wednesday morning, Mnuchin was asked several times to acknowledge that Trump was lying about the 2020 election. Each time he dodged the question, attempting to change the subject to the firm's investment to the Israeli cybersecurity company. I'm focused on our investments, our business going forward, Mnuchin said. He said he stayed out of the 2020 campaign and its aftermath. Yeah, this is nothing but repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the line. I mean, there's no lie because Joe Biden won more votes than any president in U.S. history, honk honk. But it's like the Nicene Creed. You have to repeat the Nicene Creed in order to take the communion, in order to be accepted into the communion, into the flock of sheep that is the Progressive Party. You have to repeat their creed. You have to repeat it over and over again. Nothing bad happened except the fact it's the big lie. Repeat it over and over again. What a load of fucking shit. From the Hill. Teen who allegedly crumpled up Back the Blue sign charged with hate crime. From Olaf Imahin Ocean. A Utah teen has been charged with a hate crime for allegedly stomping on a crumpled up Back the Blue sign. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reported on Wednesday. Garfield County Sheriff's Deputy Cree Carter said in a statement that when he was doing a routine traffic stop at a gas station, he saw a teen take a Back the Blue sign and stomp on it. Back the Blue is a slogan that shows solidarity with law enforcement in the country, often used to counter Black Lives Matter protests as well. The teen, identified as 19-year-old Lauren Gibson, allegedly crumpled the sign in a destructive manner and started to smirk at Carter in an intimidating manner, according to the officer's statement. Carter then arrested Gibson and was charged her with criminal mischief with a hate crime enhancement, which strengthens the penalty towards hate crime offenses, the Post reported. Well, that's probably way too much power for the police. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Gibson said the charges against her came as a shock, stating she only did it in response to Carter's aggressive approach toward her friend. I just wanted to, make her feel better or something and stand up for her, Gibson told the Daily Beast. Gibson's arrest comes after another Utah resident, Joseph Dawson, 32, was sentenced to 2 days in jail in December for pulling down a similar sign and spray painting the word bisexual in pink letters on it, according to the Daily Beast. Now, see, no, you have freedom of speech, so this bullshit shouldn't be fucking happening. No, if you want to stand up against an organization that's largely funded by the government, then stand up. But the fact that the government can come down and put an extra hate crime charge on this, no, that's fucking bullshit. And this officer should be fired. Because that's, we're not going down that road again. We're not taking this down the far right fucking road, and we're not going to intimidate teenagers, expressing themselves into doing so. I'll tear that back the blue fucking sign in half myself. And I generally like police officers. They're a typical blue-collar worker just doing what they're told against a government that has too many goddamn laws. I generally like cops. I really do. But if they're going to act like this, then I will tear their fucking sign in half too. Fuck that. No, we're not doing that. All right, let's do some more South Africa stuff. This is where we got cut off yesterday because we ran out of time. South Africa Zuma riots. Looting and unrest leave 72 dead. This is from the BBC, which means no author given. Crowds looting and setting alight shopping centers clashed with police in several cities on Tuesday. The BBC filmed a baby being thrown from a building in Durban that was on fire after the ground floor shops were looted. A day earlier, 10 people were killed in a stampede during a looting at a shopping center in Soweto. The military have been deployed to help police overstretched since the unrest began last week. South African police said in a statement they identified 12 people suspected of provoking the riots and that a total of 1,234 people have been arrested. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called it some of the worst violence witnessed in South Africa since the 90s. Before the end of apartheid, with fires started, highways blocked, and businesses and warehouses looted in major cities and small towns in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces. Ministers have warned that if looting continues, there's a risk areas could run out of basic food supplies soon, but have ruled out declaring a state of emergency. The child was caught by a crowd of people who rushed to help those trapped in the apartment block of the Central Business District of Durban, a coastal city in KwaZulu-Natal, on Tuesday afternoon. Those stealing from shops on the ground floor of Smith Street had started the fire, which spread, affecting those living upstairs. The BBC's Namsa Masiko in Durban says that after catching the baby, the passers-by and neighbors rushed to get ladders to help other residents, including children, escape. The mother was reunited with her baby, but was too emotional to talk. The rescue services arrived after about 20 minutes to help douse the fires. More than 200 shopping malls have been looted by Monday afternoon. Bloomberg news agency quoted the chief executive officer of business leadership in South Africa, Busisiwe Mavuso, as saying, several shopping centers in Soweto, South Africa's largest township, which was once home to Nelson Mandela, have been completely ransacked, with ATMs broken into, restaurant stores selling alcohol and clothing, shops all left in tatters. Soldiers working with the police managed to catch a few rioters. In total, almost 800 have been arrested, but law enforcement remains heavily outnumbered, he reports. In KwaZulu-Natal, where livestock has also been stolen, the unrest continues, with ambulances coming under attack by rioters in some areas, South Africa's Times Live News site reports. Video shows that a blood bank was looted in Durban as Mr. Ramaphosa addressed the nation on Monday night. Yeah, I don't know what sparked this. I don't know. Well, I know what sparked this, obviously, but I don't know why this is such a massive deal. I mean, is the former president that beloved in South Africa that they have to come back out and do this? I don't understand. But regardless off of this, I mean, this is big stuff, and I'm pretty sure that at this point the riots have gone beyond just coming out and saying, "Oh, well, we're mad because we're mad because Zuma's in jail. We're mad because of this here." This has probably gone beyond this, and I mean, we're coming into a point of full-on unrest. Which, I mean, there's been tension in South Africa for a long time. You can't deny that either. But I mean, it's insanity what's going on down there, and you know, I'd like to go book a vacation down there. You guys want to get a group rate? All right, from the Hill. Miles of California beaches closed after 17 million gallons of sewage spills, from Joseph Choi. About 4 miles of beaches in LA were closed on Monday after more than 17 million gallons of sewage spilled into Santa Monica Bay over the weekend. Water samples are being tested and we're getting more information about the scope of the problem, LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn said. She said the spill had been caused by mechanical failure at the Hyperion water reclamation plant, and the plant had been able to prevent an even larger spill, but called for answers about how and why this happened. Segundo Beach, the Grand Avenue storm drain, and the Dockwheeler State Beach at both the Waterway Extension and Hyperion plant have all been affected and are closed to swimmers, according to the LA County Department of Public Health. The affected beaches remains closed until water samples are confirmed negative for elevated bacteria, the department said in a statement. Beach users are advised to stay out of the water until the advisory is removed. Yeah, California's really got it going together, don't they? This is what happened when you have years and years of one-party rule. And this would, I know that, I've got a friend who continues to come out and tell me that, well, this would all be better if we had years and years of Republican rule. Well, no, it probably wouldn't. It would probably be the same. Corruption runs deep if you don't have somebody to come back and counter you, no matter which direction the corruption goes. From the Tennessean, Tennessee abandons vaccine outreach to minors, not just for COVID-19. From Brett Kellman, the Tennessee Department of Health will halt all adolescent vaccine outreach, not just for coronavirus, but for all diseases, amid pressure from Republican state lawmakers, according to an internal report and agency emails obtained by the Tennessean. If the health department must issue any information about vaccines, staff are instructed to strip the agency logo off the documents. The health department will also stop all COVID-19 vaccine events on the school property, despite holding at least one such event this month. The decision to end vaccine outreach and school events comes directly from Health Commissioner Dr. Lisa Piercy. The internal report states, additionally, the health department will take steps to ensure it no longer sends postcards or other notices reminding teenagers to get their second dose of the coronavirus vaccines. Postcards will still be sent to adults, but teens will be excluded from the mailing list, so the postcards are not potentially interpreted as solicitation to minors, the report says. Yes. Yes. This is something that needed to be done a long time ago. The state does not get to parent the children. The parents parent the children unless the children are emancipated. So you let the parents decide what is the best course of action as far as vaccination, what vaccinations, and how they conduct themselves in public life. You let the parents decide that, unless there is a major safety issue, such as a teenager going out and attempting to murder somebody in cold blood. But as far as what the teenager puts in his or her body, that should be between the doctor and the parents, not the state. So yes, the outreach should not be solicited to minors. This is a good thing. If you really want to get that solicitation out there, put the elbow into the parents, but leave the kids out of it. All right. From local10.com, widow says talk of permanent memorial to be built at Surfside site disrespectful. This is from Rosh Lowe and Michelle Solomon. It's been 20 days since the collapse of the Champlain Towers in South. Soraya Cohen is still waiting for rescuers to find her husband's body. Dr. Brad Cohen's brother, Dr. Gary Cohen, was identified. The town of Surfside's mayor announced on Monday they believe they have found Brad's ring in his car, but Soraya doesn't know if his body will ever be found. Now there's talk of building a memorial at the site, which has the grieving wife pleading that the spot be preserved. I can't even imagine such a desecration, Soraya Cohen said. Imagine if that was your spouse, your parent, or your grandparent, and to make money, they built on the top of it. She said her husband followed Jewish law to the letter. The halachik about proper burial in cemeteries, it certainly should apply to him. Kavod Hamet, showing proper respect to the dead, has always been a deeply rooted tradition with the Jewish people. I'm asking people to respect that and respect the families of the people who have already suffered so much and not to add to our pain, Cohen said. Officials have offered their views about a memorial at the site. At a news conference, Miami-Dade County Mayor Danielle Levine Cava said the memorial is needed. Exactly where it is going to be will be determined. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett said, "We're going to look for guidance from families." And the vice mayor of the town of Surfside said, "I think what should be on the site is what the family members decide." The emptiness of the unknown is heartbreaking for Soraya. It's almost like mourning process or a Shiva process that goes on, but you don't have the funeral, she said. "I'm not even 100% sure he's going to be found because they looked in his apartment and they only found his brother," she said. Whether there is a memorial on site or not is sure to become an issue. On Tuesday, the very first time, we heard some families want to rebuild on the site, but for Soraya Cohen, if her husband's body is never found, she said the area where the Champlain Towers South once stood should be considered a holy site and nothing should be built on it. Well, regardless. Now, as far as the memorial goes, I do think that a memorial should be there because that would prevent them from rebuilding on there and allow that to become a cemetery, but it shouldn't be like a paid memorial visitation. And there should be no solicitation allowed. Because then you can actually have this as a gravesite for people who are deeply religious, such as Soraya's husband, that are buried in there, that are buried in the rubble. Now, obviously, I think they should go try to get him out of the rubble first, but yeah, I mean, a memorial site, that sounds like a good idea. And I'm sure people from across the country will come and visit it. I'd probably go and visit it if they built one there, but I don't know. It's on the family, so we'll see what happens with that. From WTOL 11, mural in North Toledo reduced to rubble after being struck by lightning. The piece was created by Toledo artist David Ross in July of 2020. From the WTOL newsroom, a North Toledo mural has been reduced to rubble after it was reportedly struck by lightning on Tuesday. Toledo Fire and Rescue responded to the scene at Summit and LaGrange Streets, where a large mural dedicated to George Floyd, St. George, hallowed be his name, was killed by evil and white Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin last year and had collapsed. The piece was created by Toledo artist David Ross about a year ago. He said the artwork stands as a memorial and a reminder to never forget what happened that day in May of 2020. Well, no, it really doesn't anymore, does it? A witness who saw the wall fall told TFRD they had seen a lightning bolt strike the building. The department later confirmed the strike to be the cause of the collapse. Well, I mean, the artist worked really hard on this. I don't agree with the messaging of it, but that's going to be something that it's never going to be able to be replaced either, which is lame for the person who made the mural. Messaging aside, that sucks because that's public property. But I also kind of get a kick out of the based Zeus memes that I've been seeing floating around about this. St. George, hallowed be his name. All right, this one here. We got this one. We got a couple more. Then we'll do a thing I like and a thing that I hate and head out of here. Cape Cod restaurant closes for Day of Kindness after customers' rude behavior. From Rachel Scully. This was almost thing that I hate today, but I found something I hated even deeper. Owners of the Brewster Mass restaurant, apartment Cape Cod, closed their doors after mourning to treat their employees to a day of kindness after receiving verbal abuse from customers. Owners Regina and Brandy Felt Castellano announced via Facebook that they would be closed for the morning due to an astronomical influx daily of customers swearing, threatening to sue, and making team members cry, the Post said. They reminded customers that many of their employees, including the couple's 2 children, are young and working to pay off college, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. The final straw for the owners came when a man scolded a young employee for telling him he could not order takeout because the restaurant was not open, the Times reported. This is an unacceptable way to treat any human, the Facebook post said. We decided to close for the morning because we wanted our staff to know that they have value to us, not just as employees, but also as humans, the owners told The Hill. Everyone should be treated with kindness and respect. No one deserves to be berated. Woman, you are in the wrong industry for that. And guess what? I have worked on a waitstaff floor. I've worked. I've waited tables. I've brought food out. I've bussed tables. I know how the public can get when they're having a bad day. If you can't handle that kind of work, you should not be in that line of work. Plain and simple. Now, customers, you don't get off on this so easily either, because no, you shouldn't be treating people like this. And I understand it's mass and people are short, but still, you have the money to live in fucking Brewster in Cape Cod. Show some respect, seriously. Come on, people. It's not hard. But yeah, if you can't take a criticism either, then you should not be in that line of work. So, yeah. I'm actually going to forward this article back off to my mom just to see what she has to say. My mom still waits tables at 61 years old. And she has got stories of rude customers, a lot of them. I kind of wonder what she has to think about this. All right. Also, almost the thing that I hated, or the thing that I like. Stick Sexton Hammer quote tweeted this back out. Gun manufacturers should look into camouflaging firearms to make them less likely to be confiscated unconstitutionally. Ian Bremer says a real gun designed by U.S. gun company that looks like a Lego toy. Bad idea, bad idea, bad, can't stress this enough, idea. I love the fact that it says Block 19 on the top too. That's awesome. Yeah, no. I'm kind of in favor of this. I like the idea behind it because, yeah, it is trying to make it look like a children's toy because they're coming around and confiscating up everything off of this. But really, honestly, that is stepping down into the range of this is dangerous and kids with the bright colors could think this is a toy and somebody else could get hurt off of this. So I'm on the fence about this one, to be completely honest. I like the concept, I just don't like the execution. All right, from the New York Post, this was almost the thing that I hate too. But yet I still found something that I hated even more than this. Teacher resigns over student's project about Hitler's accomplishments. From Lee Brown. A New Jersey teacher has resigned after assigning an 11-year-old pupil a project on which she hailed the Nazi genocidal maniac Adolf Hitler's accomplishments, according to a report. Yes, let's editorialize this. The unidentified Maugham elementary school teacher agreed to quit after Tenafly education officials blamed the misguided instruction for the offensive and inappropriate project, the Pascack Valley Voice said. The female fifth grader even dressed as Hitler-based and produced a handwritten essay detailing his apparent accomplishments, one displayed for weeks in the hallway along with this photo. My greatest accomplishment was uniting a great mass of German and Austrian people behind me, the bio of the dictator said, saying that anti-Semitism drove me to kill more than 6 million Jews. I was pretty great, wasn't I? I was very popular and many people followed me until I died, it continued. Happiness is a thing called Joe. The teacher had already been placed on a paid leave of absence and will be allowed to remain so until next January, the local paper said. However, the Tenafly Board of Education voted Monday to reinstate Principal Jennifer Ferrara, who had also been on leave, despite her admitting that she definitely made mistakes that played a role in what happened, the outlet said. For that, I take full responsibility, and I'm eternally sorry, Ferrara said. This experience has taught me to think more broadly about the consequences of every decision that I make. Board members initially dismissed outrage by insisting that it was taken out of context. It was, by parents who did not understand the assignment. Well, here's the understanding of the assignment for you. You make an assignment, and you push somebody to go in and look past the media bias to find what actually happened with some of the stuff and what situations allowed a person like this to rise to power. because Uncle Adolf was voted in a free and fair election. Jesus Christ, that scared the hell out of me.
To this damaged art mural, we brought you that story last night.
I thought I muted you, you fuckstick. All right. Yes. No. When we're doing something like this, you have to look past the propaganda, because the major media apparatus of this country are going to propagandize you into thinking that Adolf Hitler is uniquely evil, never did anything good, but he was elected freely and fairly by the people of Germany. I don't agree with the fact that he was elected freely and fairly by the people of Germany, but he was able to spread a message so well that he united, as the fifth grader said, united the people of Germany behind him to come out and elect him the leader of the country before he went on. And there are even questions as to whether he was involved in the atrocities. I go by the assumption that he was involved in the atrocities, but to get him to the point where he could carry out the atrocities, he was freely and fairly elected by the German people. So, yes, outside of what you're told in the history books that are propagandized by the teachers union, it does take, because history will repeat itself, and another person will rise up like that, worshipped by his people until the day that he dies. And unlike the evil orange dictator from before, who was so evil and orange that they were able to vote him back out, this next dictator is not going to relinquish power back. So, that's what we see coming out of that. All right, let's do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate and head out of here. I just got the alert that Stephen Ignoramus went live, so we'll go over and raid him if you guys are over on Twitch. We'll go hit that raid button in just a second here, but I don't even know how many people I have watching on Twitch. Just one person. All right. Thing I like. So, this comes from Eric Finman, who is reportedly the youngest Bitcoin millionaire ever. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's got an idea here that I like. So we've got this video here. Today I'm announcing the Freedom Phone. This is the first major pushback on the big tech companies that attacked us for just thinking differently. Complete with its own uncensorable app store and privacy features, we're finally taking back ground. Let's hear what Eric Finman has to say.
Name one time in history where the people who banned books, media, and opinions were the good guys. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the world's youngest Bitcoin millionaire. I made it in Silicon Valley, and I've accomplished a lot in my life already. But now, I'm leaving big tech to fight for free speech. Because the big tech overlords are violating your privacy, censoring your speech, and I think that's so wrong. That's why I created the Freedom Phone and its uncensorable app store. Everyone is complaining about big tech censorship, but no one is doing anything about it. They say, build your own phone. So I did. Freedom Phone truly is the best phone in the world. It does everything your current phone does, except censor you and spy on you. With the Freedom Phone, your freedom of speech is our #1 priority. That's why we built our own app store that is completely uncensored. If an app you love has been banned from the mainstream app stores, you can still download it on ours, because we don't ban apps, period. And we've developed the first operating system based on your free speech. There's no app tracking, no keyboard tracking, and no location tracking, because I believe in your security. How do we ensure you're being protected? Say hello to Trust. Trust is our privacy guard. It's designed to warn you whenever an app or a website is tracking you, and gives you the option to stop it. Your data, your rules. That's our motto. The Freedom Phone is comparable to the best smartphones on the market. It has an edge-to-edge screen, a super fast processor, and multiple cameras. And your SIM card transfers into the Freedom Phone seamlessly. Big tech companies hold a monopoly on public communication and the dissemination of information, and they are abusing that power. Nobody elected Mark or Jack to be the arbiters of truth in America, yet they still thought it was okay to ban a sitting president from their platforms. If they censor a president, they will censor anyone. Imagine if Mark Zuckerberg censored MLK or Abraham Lincoln. The course of history would have been altered forever. Out of all the constitutional amendments, there's a reason why the Founding Fathers made the right to free speech the very first. I believe you have a voice that deserves to be heard without being censored. Protect yourself from big tech censorship. Let your voice be heard. Live free with the Freedom Phone.
All right, well, in before this guy gets called a Nazi and a particular danger to the United States, because I'm sure that that's coming. Yeah, that's I see that Spartan says the boomer phone too, and I do have to wonder if that is some of this trying to get onto a niche market to come out and say, oh, well, see, well, we're just if you don't like your Google or your Apple because they're spying on you, then come and buy our phone. And I don't know. Like, I would actually have to see performance reports as to how this goes. I mean, I understand how bad Android is, and I've got my Note 10 over there. I've got the iPhone 5 sitting over there that I use for podcasts and music and shit like that. And I understand some of the risk and everything of all these people that are support. But, you know, this is a situation we're sitting in, too, where two companies hold all of these smartphone communications. I mean, BlackBerry fell right onto the side of the road after Android came back out and Android started getting big. BlackBerry was done after that. So Google and Apple are controlling almost all the communications on this planet. And I mean, if somebody's actually going to make a viable competitor to that, I like that. Because yes, we do need a viable third option competitor to it. At least, even if it doesn't make it, it'll sit back and force these guys to come out and say, hey, we're doing something wrong here, and nobody wants to buy our shitty phones or even our flagship phones. So I like the competition. I don't know how this is going to go, but I like the fact that the free market is coming in to try to help decide what some of this is doing. And I know that Eric Finman is fighting with both hands tied behind his back because the government has vested interest in raising up Apple and Google. So we'll see where this goes. Now let's do something that I hate. All right, from KTLA 5. Olympic athletes will put on own medals to protect against the spread of the pinko fucking pox at the Tokyo ceremonies. From the Associated Press, athletes at the Tokyo Olympics will put on their medals around their own necks to protect against spreading the coronavirus. The very significant change to traditional medal ceremonies in 339 events was revealed Wednesday by the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach. The medals will not be given around the neck, Bach told international media on a conference call from Tokyo. They will be presented to the athlete on a tray, then the athlete will take the medal him or herself. It will be made sure that the person who will put on the medal on the tray will do so only with disinfected gloves so that the athlete can be sure that nobody touched them before. Oh my God! Oh my God! The Olympic approach is different to soccer in Europe, where the UEFA president Alexander Seferin has personally hung medals around the necks of players at competitions finals in recent weeks. Seferin also shook hands with Italy's goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma at the Euro 2020 medal and trophy presentation in the London on Sunday. He gave his save in a penalty shootout to clinch the title for Italy against England. Okay. You have earned the right to have the Olympic Committee member. You've earned the right. If you have fought that hard, if you worked that hard, if you trained that hard to win a gold medal in an Olympic event, you have earned the right to hold your hands folded in front of you, bow your head in front of an Olympic commissioner humbly and say, yes, I won. And have them put the medal on. But this, and I understand it's Japan too, which they walked around with masks before the Kamikuf pandemic, but this is just a stretch. This is so far. And this really concerns me a little bit that we're getting this far, and this is never going to go away. But, I mean, at least they're having it at this point, because we were questioning whether they were going to have it at all at this point. But, yeah, this is your daily reminder that this is still in place, and the government can come back and do whatever they can to come back to try to put control into your life. We're not even the Olympics can come out of this stuff. All right, that's my show. That's it, you guys. We're done. 5 articles left over from yesterday and all the stupid shit that happened between yesterday and today. Where's the music? Let's change the scene. Let's get the fuck out of here. Change the scene, throw the music up. Let's go. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, came and hung out with us and watched the show that we have going on here. Remember, if you want to come back and check us back out on demand, we are back over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. I'm going to start getting caught up with some of the stuff too, because I know that I want to share out the audio platforms of my guest contemporary hosts, as well as everything that's coming on here. Come back here tomorrow for a more contemporary, because we'll come back and do this again. Hopefully not as busy tomorrow as we have been for the last couple days, but still looking forward to coming and hanging out with you guys. Otherwise, stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going to go rate Stephen Ignoramus, and we will see you tomorrow with more contemporary. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.